Hey, welcome to the class, everyone. Tonight we are going to be talking about the five desires. What are those desires? Why should we care?
Why should we care?
We care
They might,
about desires, right? I want,
yeah,
want stuff,
they
right?
may, they might not be exactly what you think they will be, everybody.
Yeah, because we're trying to be fundamental here.
Yeah, yeah.
My name is Dr. Asensar Bear. Each week we do this class. We teach Harvard the meditation. It comes out of tradition of Sufism, especially the Sufism of Hazrat Inayat Khan. And this is my co-teacher, Leah Schaefer.
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Well, we're so glad to have you all with us tonight. Um, and we like to think about how can meditation, how can spiritual development be helpful? How can it be useful? And one of the things is about desire. We have this, we all are familiar with that, right? I mean, we all have very strong desires. Um, and the ones who like to say they don't are often like posing as spiritual. Oh, I don't want anything because I'm so spiritual. Or I'm not attached to this, that, or the other thing.
Well, and it's they're both important in different ways, but it's more important to be a keynote. So it's like Hazrat Nayat Khan says we have to cross the sea of detachment and the ocean of attachment. Um, and so it's
A
like
very
both.
serious quote.
Yeah, both are important. Both are important at different times, and I think that that is the distinguishing factor. Is that sometimes it is important to have detachment, but that doesn't mean you're supposed to be detached all the time. And part of the reason that we hold that philosophy
Yeah,
um, of attaching and having desire is because we're human and we're alive and we're conscious. We have consciousness, and because we have consciousness, we're able to have experiences of God realization. So the universal life has consciousness, but it needs the medium to know itself through. And so because we have the ability to become conscious, we can allow the universe to know itself through our own limited form. And that's why it's so important to have this ability to have a desire, to have attachment while being human instead of denying being human or denying being in this world
right.
entirely.
Well, probably the best known like formulation comes from Buddhism, where we have this idea that life is suffering, and that suffering comes from desire. It comes from attachment to things, right? So, the- this in, in this sort of simple version of right life, you suffer because of your attachment, and and then it's okay. Well, then we want to rise above these attachments. We want to experience detachment. Um, and Sufism has a different kind of angle on this, right? Like, while not denying
Mhm.
that, there's a different angle
Yeah.
that says, there's a reason why we're here as human beings. You know, there's a reason why we're here, and there's a kind of general reason. Like life experiences life through us, right? The
Yeah.
universe, God, the one being, right? In order to experience all that can be experienced, well, here we are, right? That's the general kind of purpose of life, but each one of us has a specific purpose, right? And what makes it different? What makes my purpose different from yours? Maybe
Yeah.
there's some overlap, maybe there's some similarities, but each one of us is unique, right? And how do we discover that? How do we uncover that? Well, it's through our desires. you know so desires are pretty important. They hold a key to the purpose of our lives, so we don't
Yeah.
want to miss that. We don't want to say, well, don't worry, I'm not attached, right? You need attachment to get through the trials and tribulations of life, right?
Hmm.
Life can be pretty hard. if there's a
Mhm.
reason, if there's something so important about you being here, you know,
Yeah.
if you're in touch with that, you can, there's a lot more that you can do than a lot more that you can become.
And it's also this feeling of like, um, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Um, we're co-creators of the universe, and so like
Yeah.
it's this idea of being able to create, and the creator is able to experience life through our creation, and we're able to bring in the experiences, and you can't become fully human, you can't have the full experience, you can't have the full experience of being part of the creator if you don't embrace the fullness of humanity. So the fullness of humanity is to embrace the full spectrum. And part of that full spectrum is the pain of being alive. And I think that this is what's so difficult for us, is like we feel the pain and we want to escape from it, we want to deny it, we want to go back home to heaven or whatever you want to call it. Like we want to not have to feel that way, and I'm not saying that I'm looking for pain, but what I am looking for is to embrace my humanity to such an extent and such a degree that I can experience the fullness of life moving through me. And I cannot do that if I am
Yeah.
denying my humanness, if I am denying my earthly bound body. And so it's a really powerful thing to embrace the full spectrum of our lives, and to embrace our humanity, because then once we do that, we have conscious choices about what we want to bring in and through us. And one of the things that we can bring in and through us are
Yeah.
these universal energies that we'll talk about, these universal energies that perpetuate through the five desires.
Yeah. So, one thing we're saying here, desire is important spiritually, right? That's one thing. But does that follow then that like every desire is important? Every
No.
desire is good, right?
So
Maybe not.
tricky.
There's
Tricky,
there's
tricky.
levels to this. There's layers to this. There's layers to this.
I desire to
And
be at the slot. Sorry.
one one
Sorry.
of the things that we that's a theme, right, is us always thinking, us falling into this illusion that, it's out there somewhere, right? Whatever it is,
Yes.
whatever it is we want, it's out there, and we want to get it,
Mhm.
right? And this is, the great illusion. And this is the thing that causes us so much suffering, right? Always striving for something that's outside of ourselves. And the things that are outside of ourselves, let's be honest, that's where we have a lot less control. That's where we have influence. I mean, we can influence the things outside of us for sure, um, but we can very, very rarely control them. Especially when it comes to big things, especially when it comes in other people. We at most we're going to have an influence, right? So
Yeah.
are we? We're always looking outside and always striving for something where we have very little actual ability to get that, right? And that is a kind of a trap, right? That we, of
Mhm.
course, we want to accomplish exterior things, but we want to keep in mind that the thread of that, the impetus of that, is very often something within us that we're seeking. You know,
Yeah.
often what we're seeking is within. And I think that comes out.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that interests me about this topic that comes from Hazrat Inayat Khan about the five desires. Because, like, on one hand, it's a way of grouping these desires, categorizing them so that you can kind of make sense of them, and also learning something about yourself. Like, well, which of these broad kind of categories seems to have the most appeal to you, right? Because they're not going to all appeal to you equally,
Yeah.
right? They're not going to all motivate you in the same way, and then you learn something about yourself. So I'm just saying this as kind of background to like motivate the conversation. So
Yeah,
Should
love
we
it.
start with the the desire, the first one, the desire to know, the desire to know? Do you relate to that one as a motivator? Does that desire drive you?
Me? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the desire to know is definitely a big motivator for me. And I thought it was funny. Asatar and I were talking about the desires today, and I was like, oh, if we want to stimulate people's desire to know, we should just tell them four of the desires and we'll tell them the next one next week.
Right. Well, see,
It's like
I
pretty much what
have
all
to
binge
say, yeah,
watching is based on.
that is an ancient technique, and we see it in clickbait all the time, right? Like,
Yeah, clickbait.
you
Yeah.
know, clickbait, but
Yeah.
it's an ancient idea, right? What motivates you? Uncovering a mystery,
Yeah.
I don't understand this.
Mm.
I want to know something. This is a mystery, like
Yeah.
that can really be motivating, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And
God,
I
how
think it
does
comes
this
through.
work? You know?
And I think one of the ways that
So,
that comes
yeah,
through me,
we need to get better use of that for our clickbait, right?
we do, yes. I think one of the ways that comes through me the strongest is the desire to know myself. So like even in
Yeah,
my yoga practice, it's like, I'm learning about how my body moves through time and space, and like I'm learning about how all the different ways in which that I can move it and experience life through it in that way. And the same with meditation. It's like I want to know all of the queendom within. I don't want to just stay in the basement,
yeah,
um, living in some narrow conscious worlds that is very limited and conditioned. I want to
right.
know my full queendom and all the rooms, including all of the vistas within. And so that's like a big motivator for my meditation for sure. Yeah.
You were throwing this word queendom. Very interesting, right? Throwing that into the mix. Uh,
I don't know
yeah.
who made it up, but I use it. I use it often. I don't
No,
know if I made it
that's
up
good,
or
right? Our language
yeah.
is so full of these patriarchal terms, right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
why should we
Yeah.
use them? It's and I like your you made reference to this old Soupy story too, right? About the person who's locked in this dungeon, and they don't even remember
Yeah.
exactly why they're there, right? But they are, oh my god, this is terrible here. It's confusing. It's dark. I can't see anything. It's cold. It's lonely. And then they discover one day that the door's unlocked, and that they can
Or there's
the
even
staircase, and then
or
there's
there's
all
like
this
even a door.
to
There's even a
explore. Right?
door to go
There's a
through.
there's a door,
Oh
yeah,
my God,
and
there's a
and that
door.
that you take time and explore all of this, right? So it's a
Yeah.
metaphor for the inner journey.
Yeah.
Um, in case some of our viewers might not be familiar with that old Sufi story.
I
Um,
don't think we're gonna.
so,
So I don't think we're gonna be able to get through all of them in one class time.
oh my god, well, viewers,
The pressure
brace
is
yourself
on.
for a
We're gonna
cliffhanger
have to do part
uh,
two. We're gonna have to do part two.
of epic dimensions, because we might not get to fully explore all the
I'm telling
desires.
you, this is my feeling the whole time. Oh man, do you want to keep going?
Desire to know. Maybe that desire will motivate you to come to the next uh, class. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. Clickbait. Oh my god. Anyway.
Oh, look, we have a nice comment here.
CF
Queendom or kingdom? I say regency or Khalifa. Yeah, nice.
Regency.
It's
I love that.
Reg-
That's beautiful.
yeah, that's nice.
Thank you.
It's, it's oops, no, Jen. It's neutral. Yeah, right. It would be
It's
nice if
neutral.
our that's it
Yes,
would be nice.
I
If our,
like neutral words for sure.
yeah, right. It's nice if our language had more of those, and maybe that's the kind of
Yes.
way that things are heading, right? Right.
Yeah, think so for
Um,
sure.
because all these things are, they don't require a gender, right? It's about the principle is about leadership and what what you hold, and what responsibility you take on, right? Those things don't depend on gender, like that's
Yeah.
not necessary to associate it. So good point.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to think about for ourselves, what in what way are we motivated by this pursuit of knowledge, whether it's knowledge of the self or something else, right? When you have an experience, maybe the experience doesn't go your way, but do you say to yourself, "Well, I learned something," right? I mean, that can be a kind of a sign, right? That you're
Mhm.
focused on that. You know, it's definitely been a
Mhm.
motivator for me. I find I love learning things. I mean, just and new ideas, new perspectives. Um, I'm not looking for, like if I'm going to read a book, I'm not looking for something that reaffirms my point of view, right? I'm looking for something that is going to be something new, right? That
Mhm.
interests me more. So, I think
Mhm.
that's something to kind of just know about yourself. Um, well, should we talk about our next one of these desires?
Yeah,
Because
we should give at least two of them.
we should at least get two, yeah, maybe more. You guys, this is exciting. What will we get to? The next
Yeah.
and the desire to know is associated with the air element, right? Because air
Yeah.
is very diffuse. Air is, this thing about taking on different perspectives, about seeing
Yeah.
things, about learning, right? About
Yeah.
information, about knowledge. That's very air. Um, the next of the five desires is the desire for power. And this is a much more
Yes.
fiery, right? This is associated with
Mhm.
fire element. Okay. Desire
Yeah.
for power. Um, and you can see, right? Some people are much more motivated by the desire to know, to learn things, and others are motivated more by the desire to express power, to understand power, to wield power, right? To accumulate power. So
Yeah.
you know, but it's fundamental. We all have it, right? I mean, like, who doesn't want power over their life, over
Mhm.
their environment, maybe even over others, you know? Wouldn't it be nice if people listened to you more? If people actually did what you said, right? I mean, that would be nice. Would it be nice if you could actually maybe structure things in the world in a better
Yeah.
fashion, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
power does not equal a negative, right? When I say
Yeah.
there's a fundamental power, I'm not saying like, I mean, people are power hungry, whatever, right? I mean, that's one way of looking at it, right? That's a kind of distortion, you know. But we mean it in just a way of, do you have influence over outer things, right? And inner
Well,
things.
and
Okay, do you
yeah,
have because
yourself.
the most fundamental kind of power that you can have, the kind of power that can actually never be taken away, is power over yourself, right?
Yeah.
That's the one person that you really have power over, right? So,
Yes.
again, when we seek outer forms to manifest these desires, a lot of times we're doing the most fruitless kind of work, right? I mean, you're trying to have power over others. You know what? Others are going to resist that. You know,
Mhm.
that's the kind of iron law of power.
Mhm.
Like, people
Yes.
don't necessarily want you to have power over them, right? So, but if you have power over
Yes.
yourself, no one can take that away, right? What does that look like?
Yeah.
What does it look like to have power over yourself?
Well, and you said it so well earlier today. We were talking about the example. So there's these fundamental power or fundamental desires that we're going into today in the class. And Asatar has been expressing that they are the foundation of the energies that we're looking for, and we're trying to find them more within. And he gave a great example earlier about money. So, like a lot of people naturally have a desire for money because you need it to survive,
Right.
right? Safety. But then there's like also this idea of having more power associated with money a lot of times. I mean, maybe it'll bring you some of the other desires, which I'm not going to tell you. But like, but money is like a very common desire that's more of a superficial form. And when it's more of a superficial
And it's
desire,
good
it's
to
like,
ask
why
this
do you?
question. exactly why do you want it, right? That's going to be
Yeah.
more revealing, as people tell me this all the time, especially if they find out that I'm a communist. And so like, well, I don't know if I could be a communist because I want, I want money, like this. Oh, what a secret. You want money, huh? Uh, it's a shameful secret. I want money. Like that's right. Like that. That's what I was saying. Um, and it's like, well, isn't that interesting to examine? I mean, it's not that interesting on the surface, right? Oh, you want money? Okay, well, so does everyone, right? But what most appeals to you about it, right? Is it
Yeah.
being able to not have to take orders from somebody else, right? To not be under somebody else's power? Interesting, right? Is it to be able to do more of what you like to do, right? Is it to able to have control over your time, let's say, right? I mean, like, now we're getting somewhere, right? Now we're getting to
Hmm.
the why. Or is it like what Leah mentioned earlier? Is it about safety? Is it about, you know, okay,
Hmm.
well, I know that I have money that I'm not going to be, completely unable to pay my bills or get thrown out of my home or whatever,
Hmm.
right? Um, you know, whatever reason it is, right? It's worth exploring because again, this is about you, right? And it's about what does this say about you, right? That is that's the angle that we're taking.
Yeah. Yeah, and as Asatar was saying earlier, it's like you can get the money taken away at any point, but if you develop the desire within yourself, so if you develop your self power within yourself and the access to the
Right.
energy of power within yourself, the through the will, through the fire element, then nobody can take that away
Yeah.
from you. No matter what happens, no matter what happens to you, that can't be taken away because you
Right.
know it
You
within.
ever
You know.
within, right? You ever see those things? It's like somebody says it's like a trying to prove a point or something. So like you can drop me off in this city that I don't know, and I have no money, and by this and this time I will have all this. Like a kind of a contest. Like a challenge or whatever. Like they have that sense. I can. You know. I
Mhm.
can, even if everything is taken away from me, I can succeed again, right? Why? Well, because they have that sense of inner power,
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
is much better than something external. Someone can take away your house, someone can take away your money.
Mhm.
External objects we don't have as much control over. So, but if you have that sense that comes from within, that I can, um, no one can take that away.
Yeah, absolutely. So we should probably meditate since this is a meditation show. Um,
Yes, we
even
have
though
to
we've
meditate.
only gotten through to
Stay
design.
with us, you guys. We might get through more. You might be able to learn more.
Oh my gosh. All right, Asatar. So you go first,
Who's
Asatar.
doing this?
You
You want me to do
go
this one? All right.
first. Yeah, it's your turn to go first.
My turn to go first. All right. Well, assume
I want
you're.
to give you the power. I'm giving you the power.
Thank you. Assume you're in an upright meditation posture and begin to just find that way of sitting in which you are relaxed and yet upright, feeling as though you are lifted from above by a string that is just attached to the very top of your head, while the weight of your body is resting on your sits bones, trying to sit in a way that is upright yet relaxed, so that you can relax and let go of the tension that you hold, but at the same time feel energized. Tap into the energy within. And we're going to do a meditation on the desire within your heart. And we're going to practice heart rhythm meditation, and heart rhythm meditation has a foundation to it. It has a structure to it, and each week I love to go through this structure from the beginning because I've just found it to be so helpful every time I meditate. No matter what the theme of that meditation is, no matter what the energy that I'm going towards, I use this foundation, and it has helped me so much. Words can't really begin to describe it. So here's the structure that I'm talking about. It is to make your breath deep, to make your breath slow, to make your breath rhythmic, to make your breath heart centered, and to make your breath full. So these 5 different parts to it. We begin by making the breath deep, that is, and breathing out and allowing your belly to contract. So very simple, sometimes called belly breathing. Breathe in, your belly gets big. Breathe out, your belly gets small. If that is the only step you can do, that's still very good because it moves the breath down in your body. It activates a whole different set of nerves. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system. That is the relax and chill part of your nervous system. It slows your heart rate, lowers your blood pressure, and releases a whole host of different anti stress compounds in your body. Just by changing your breath, you can have a profound effect on your physiology, which then has an effect on your mind, has an effect on your emotions, it has an effect on your spirit. Deep breathing. And then we're going to add slow to this. So breathe deeply and make a conscious effort now to slow down your breathing. That means breathe out more than you would, and breathe in more than you would. If we don't pay attention, if our breath is unconscious, it's probably going to be pretty rapid. And rapid breath, it just is a stress trigger are all around us. Our stress triggers get stuck on. So we're working to reverse that. Rather than the breath being up in your chest and rapid, we're making it deep in your belly and slow. And it's amazing how quickly this works. I mean, you can do this for a minute, even less. You can take a few breaths and just feel yourself calming down. When your breath gets slower, it has an effect to slow down even your thinking, to slow down and move away from that anxiety that we all have to some extent. Now, the next steps are to make the breath rhythmic and heart centered. We want the breath to be rhythmic because that creates a very important energetic and physiological balance within us. Physiologically, a balanced rhythmic breath that is the same length and intensity on the inhalation and the exhalation has a whole host of physical benefits. Spiritually, it creates a balance between the energy that we put out and the energy that we take in. Because breath is energy, breath is life. If our breath is unbalanced, we're going to have problems. It's going to unbalance us energetically. If we give out too much energy, burnout. If we take in more than we give out, we have the frustration of not fully developing ourselves, of not firing on all cylinders. So we want to make the breath an even rhythm. And we also want to focus the breath on our hearts. Our hearts are, they are both the problem and the solution. Like we talked about at the very beginning of the show, Buddha identifies in his teaching life is suffering because of our attachment to desire. So there we have the problem, right? Your heart experiences pain. Your heart experiences vulnerability. And it manifests in your mind. You have worry, you have anxiety. Are we familiar with our hearts as the problem, but are we familiar with our hearts as the solution? And our hearts can be filled with wisdom, inspiration, joy, a joy that is beyond any reason for it. Our hearts can be filled with peace, with inner power, with a deep sense of connection and happiness, with love. So the Sufis say the heart has all of the medicine that it needs to heal itself. That is the reason that we give our hearts breath. Breath is life. Give your heart the life, the energy that you need to experience all of that beauty and wonder that is within you. And we have a structure that may support that, and that is to tune into your physical heart beating and to breathe in tune with that beating of your heart so that you have the same number of beats as you breathe in that you do as you breathe out. Now, this can be difficult, so I'm challenging you with this practice. And if you find that you're not able to do it, don't worry. I don't want to enhance your worries in any way right now. Just see it as okay, that's a challenge. If you decide to stay with this practice, if you take on this challenge, you will get there. Sometimes our heartbeat is kind of hiding from our attention. But the wonderful thing is it's still there, it's still beating. It's in there, it's happening. That we know for sure. All we're trying to work on here is the ability to hear it, the ability to feel it. So you can take your fingertips and press them on your breastbone. You might be able to feel that sensation in your pulse. Sometimes you can put your palm or even two palms, that can be helpful. You can take one hand and curl it around so that you have the fingertips here are feeling your pulse. The other hand is on the chest. So different tactics for feeling that heartbeat. Some of you might be able to feel it without this. And if so, that's good. Tune into the beating of your heart and use it to bring your breath into balance. Use the number of beats that is right for you. But if you're going to take up the challenge that is this practice, I would like you to get to 8 beats in and 8 beats out. If you're already at that point, maybe you see if you can go a bit further. Rhythmic, heart-centered breathing. Very, very powerful. If you breathe 8 beats in and 8 beats out, your breathing will be much slower, much more powerful than your ordinary unconscious breath. And the final step is to make the breath full. And that means to really use your abdominal and intercostal muscles to squeeze out all of the breath that you can as you exhale, while doing all the other things that I said, keeping the breath slow and rhythmic, controlled. And then opening, breathing in, slowly expanding first your belly, then the sides of your body, all the way up to your collarbone, all the way up into your chest. The full breath is not just the belly, it is the belly and the chest. We want to keep that order. We want to expand the belly, then expand the chest. And when we breathe out, contract, breathe out from the chest, and then expand the abdominal muscles and squeeze the breath out from the belly. So this manner of breathing is much different from what you're used to. It'll probably feel like an immense amount of work. And if you stop paying attention to it for 1 second, you'll probably stop doing it. But I can tell you that it's like playing an instrument, like you get used to playing the instrument of your breath. And it becomes an incredible foundation for meditation. So we want to tune this now and begin to tune into your heart and the longing of your heart, the desire that's within your heart. And just explore that. Breathe into that desire. Feel your heart's longing. Feel what it is that you want. Maybe you don't know immediately what you desire, because that's common. We often cover up and repress We don't let ourselves really know what we want necessarily. Perhaps we've been given the message that if we say what we want, then we're absolutely not going to get it. Perhaps we've experienced disappointment. We've been crushed by life. This is what life does, after all. Life can be very crushing. And who has not experienced the pain of disappointment, of wanting something and not getting it? So it takes a lot of courage to breathe into your heart and breathe into your desires. There may be pain attached to that longing. Whatever is there, breathe into it, energize it, feel it, give it breath. Feel that your heart is expanding. Your heart is moving toward the object of your desire. But explore this desire. What do you hope to feel by getting it? Because it is very often the case that there are feelings attached to that desire. That we hope so much to have that because then we will feel this way. What is that way? Explore that. Breathe into that. Feel the longing not only for the object of your desire, which is very often an external thing. I'm not saying that's wrong, not at all. We do have the desire to achieve external things, that's okay. All I'm saying is that you pay attention to what is the longing, what is the feeling that you hope to attain from that. What does that say about you, about your energy? What does it feel like to be in the flow of that desire? What does it feel like in your body? What does it feel like in your desires, in your heart, in your emotions? What does it feel like in your thoughts? What images, what sensations? What comes to mind? That is all part of the experience. And I have found this practice of just sitting with the desire, sitting with the longing, feeling it, examining it, learning from it, to be incredibly helpful, not just for learning about yourself, but for actually getting the thing that you're after. Quite amazing. Now, of course, if you're trying to attain an external object, you shouldn't only do internal things. That's helpful, but you have to follow the external steps. If you want to be in the Olympics, you have to train for the Olympics, right? That not just a date, right? Of course, we're not saying that you only do inner work, only that there's a lot of times we put roadblocks in our own way. And the inner part can help line everything up within ourselves so that we stop fighting ourselves, stop undermining ourselves, and we can work in a clear and direct way. All right, we'll take a few final breaths and end our meditation here.
Thank you, Asatar. Mm. Yeah, and I feel like that practice was such a beautiful example of just gaining self-power in and of itself, like especially the beginning, the technique, the breathing, the
Mm,
rhythm, the depth, rhythm with our heartbeat is all gaining self-power on the microcosmic level, and
absolutely.
but on the most fundamental levels of our own life force. And so it transfers into the outer as well. And
Yeah.
I had spoken with you earlier about this, but this was actually the reason I wanted to do this topic, is because there the life of the road of our life is long, and these desires that we have in our heart, the outer expression of them is not always, and most of the time not, going to look anything like what our imagination says it will.
Right.
Um, and and but I do feel like there is a perpetual progress or evolution toward experiencing the fullness of that desire. As the form changes, the essence persists.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
and and I find that even myself, that I am very affected by learned helplessness. So
Mm,
we're animals, and as we have divinity within us, and we have all of these potentials within us, but we are very much animalistic.
yeah.
And in that way we can be trained and conditioned. And when we don't get what we want, so like there's many different factors with this. It could be the becoming the powerful career head that you always wanted to do, or the purposeful career head you always wanted to do, or it could be to
Right.
master the health of your own body in a certain direction, or um to have these spiritual awakenings, these spiritual realizations without drugs. You can have them with drugs, but the drugs give them to you, versus like your own abilities to tap into these parts of yourself that are you, that are part of you.
Yeah.
um but I think
Drugs
for
don't always deliver the
myself,
same experience, too, right? I mean, sometimes a drug can give you a very bad experience.
right. um but in any case, and then there's love. And I know that's definitely one of my hyper focuses, and this idea of like that it can not show up the way you want it to, or it can transmutate in ways that are very, very painful.
Mm,
um, and it can be disheartening, to say the least. And so maybe you don't relate with love in particular, but it's just a very like, whether it's the career or the health or something else, it can be disheartening, and we can learn patterns of helplessness.
yeah.
So learned helplessness, in which we're like, oh well, this is bad, so then I shouldn't go that way anymore. But it's really the outer form that wasn't the right outer form, but the energy itself is much bigger than the outer form.
Yeah.
And so I want to go into the meditation again, and we haven't given away the last three of the desires. So we're going to really harp on the desire for you to know, and you'll have to come back next week. Um,
We have a thank you from our friend here, Andrew Spencer. That's nice.
oh,
Good to see you.
Andrew. Thank you, Andrew, for being here. So we have just 10 more minutes. So let's just tap into this real quick. Let's go
Okay.
ahead and come into your posture. And I'll explore it through the desires that we explored so far. So go ahead, deepen your breathing. Drop into your heart. Find your heart, find your core. Let your heart energy get bigger as you start to breathe in rhythm with your own heart, whether systematically or intuitively for this evening, as you practice, as you gain your skill set. But it's like we're almost bowing the breath to the heart while we do that. We're bowing the breath, our breathing, to our own internal rhythm of our heart. We're letting our heart be the leader in that way. It's setting the rhythm of our life force moving through us. And at the same time, the life force is allowing our center to get bigger and bigger energetically, with more and more presence, more and more life. So let your heart get bigger as you breathe. Let it get so big that it becomes loud, that you can hear it. You know what it wants. And you're not afraid to listen. You're not going to shove it down or disown it or pretend to renounce something that you've never gained. You're not going to look away, but you're going to look toward and feel the fullness of your own center, your own life. Now, the uniqueness of your own heart is going to speak to you directly. But I'm going to just use the two that we've used so far, with the desire to know and the desire for power. And so let's start with the desire to know. So as you listen to your heart and you listen for your heart's desire as it is, as it tells itself to you today, ask yourself the question, not your mind, but your heart. Ask your heart the question, what do you wish to know fully and completely and deeply and intimately? We can narrow our knowing into something beyond the scope of a microscope or a telescope. We can know things beyond what we think is possible. What do you really wish to know? What do you wish to become so keenly focused on and so keenly curious about that you know it? You know it beyond your ideas of it. Like if I go through a door and I don't know what the door is on the other side of it, but I want to know. I know there's something. There's something I want to know. And when we know someone or something well enough, it reveals itself to us. We become intimate with it. And listen to your heart. What is it that you're seeking? What are you wanting to know? Really find this answer from within. Find it within your heart. Keep breathing. Deep, full, rhythmic breath. Listening. What is it that you want to know? And like Asatar said, don't hold back. Don't hold back right now. Let yourself dream. Let yourself have imagination, vision. But not so much through your mind as the director, but through your heart as the director. Your heart as the one leading the energy, leading the way of what you want to know. but don't narrow it. Let your heart open to the broadest scope of universal life. What do you want to know? And now switching gears. If you like to, you can add the fire breath here in through the mouth and out through the nose. If you really want to start to gain that inner fire element in through the mouth, out through the nose, full deep rhythmic breath, but stay with your heart the whole time. And I want you to look for an internal flame, an internal sense of power, an internal knowing of your own power. And I don't want you to make any excuses. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I want you to make no excuses. I want you to feel the power that's within. Because I know that it is there, whether we are in touch with it or not. Feel your internal flame, your internal power deep within. Let it get bigger with every breath that you take. Let it start to grow within you with every breath that you take. Feel your internal sense of power, of fire, of truth. And while you anchor yourself into that space, now that you know your power, what do you want to do? In other words, when you finally realize your own power, when you become empowered, when your soul becomes ennobled, empowered, what are you going to do with your day, with your voice, with your life? Who will you become? What will you create? What will you stop hiding from? What will you no longer avoid? What will you go toward fully, forcefully? Breathe a little bit with that. Keep looking at it, keep facing it, and keep building the power within. Becoming your most empowered version of yourself is your birthright. I want to encourage you to not hold back. And that's all we have time for today. So go ahead and move your body, my dear ones. And then open up your eyes.
Nice meditation. I love the way you work the themes in really beautifully. And
thank you.
who's here? Our dear friend, Marco.
Thank you, AQ. Thank you for being here. I always feel you with us. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, next week, of course, we have a built-in theme. We did think that we'd get through all 5 tonight, but
I did not.
Leah didn't believe in it. But
So cliffhanger, everybody.
Yeah, the cliffhanger that you thought might happen is happening.
If you want to know, you have to come back next week. Oh, thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much.
Good to be with you all. We'll be back next week and talking about those other 3 desires. What are those? I want to know. Have a good week, everyone, and keep meditating, keep practicing.
Yeah. Happy meditating, everybody. Thank you.
Take care.